What's going on, Omega? We're back.
And you know where we're back at? We're back at the Old Testament. In the book of Joshua. Today, we're supposed to be reading chapters 1 through 3 in the book of Joshua. If you've been tracking along with us, we just went to the New Testament for a little bit. We were reading about the Gospel of Matthew and the life of Jesus. And as you saw at the beginning of the video, now we're back. We're back in the Old Testament. We're picking up where we left off. So Deuteronomy ends, and that's where we pick up in Joshua, right? Moses is dead. Moses, for the longest time, has been the figurehead that's leading the nation of Israel, right? He was there to bring them out of Egypt. He helped them cross the Red Sea. He's been the spokesperson. Like he's got this larger than life personality. He's spoken to God face to face. So Israel, after taking this 30-day period to mourn his death, they get new leadership, right? They get this guy named Joshua, who was Moses's right-hand man. He had been sent as a spy by Moses into the Promised Land, so he's actually seen the Promised Land. He's fit to lead. He's kind of been bred for this role, but Israel's still just kind of shaken up after this change of leadership. And they're also presented with a problem. Right on the doorstep of the Promised Land is the Jordan River. And the Jordan River is no small river. This is not something small that feeds into Lake Chabot. This is huge. The word Jordan in Hebrew translates to descender, which is appropriate because when the Jordan River starts to where it ends, there's a significant drop in its elevation, right? So by the time that they're about to cross this river, it's over 1,200 feet deep, and it's at peak flood season, right? Which raises 14 extra feet above where they would normally be. So big problem, big water, preventing them from entering the Promised Land. This is the Promised Land that God had told their ancestor Abraham way back in Genesis, I'm going to give you a land that's flowing with milk and honey. And they're on the doorstep of it. They could practically see the milk and honey from where they're standing, but the Jordan River is right in front of them. A huge problem. And the solution is a novel one. It's the same solution that they faced a while back. If they were worried about their future, all they needed to do was trust in the past. In Exodus, when God was leading them out of Egypt, he led them across the Red Sea. He parted the waters, right? And we read in chapter 3 for Joshua that when Joshua in verse 5, he said, "Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you." And then verse 15, as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan, their feet touched the ground, the water's edge. The water from upstream stopped flowing. And then the priests who carried the ark of the covenant in verse 17 of the Lord stopped in the middle of the Jordan and stood on dry ground while all Israel passed until the whole nation had completed crossing on dry ground. Now, I want to draw just a little bit of a parallel, not one for one. I don't want you to read too much into this, but our situation isn't that much different from Israel's right now, at least as Omega, right? We've had a recent change in leadership. Charles, who is the figurehead, who many of us have grown up to love and kind of almost directly associate with high school ministry, has moved on. And we've got Austin, right? I'm not calling Austin Joshua. I'm not projecting that. I'm just saying we're still kind of dealing with a change in leadership as we've got this new problem, COVID-19. I'm sure some of your family members, if they're not directly affected by the virus itself, they've been affected by its ramifications, right? So some of them may be out of work. Some of them may be doing double or triple work, depending on what industry they work in, right? But COVID-19 has rocked us. And if you're worried about our future, you need to take heart in the past and what God has already done. And I think that's the takeaway that I took from reading these first 3 chapters. And what's kind of cool is that even you don't have to be in the nation of Israel to recognize that God is God. In chapter 2, when Rahab is talking to the spies, the king has already sent out people to try to find those spies because he knows those spies are from the nation whose God is out there like a wrecking ball, wiping out people left and right. In chapter 2, she's talking, she says, "We heard how your Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 kings of the Amorites east of Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below." They're not even Israelites, and they know that God and that he's real and he's powerful and he's solving their problems left and right. And so to answer the question of, what do I do in COVID-19? What do I do when Omega is meeting on Zoom and I'm uncertain about my future? I would say, first of all, look to the past, right? Look at what your life has to show of God's handiwork. Where are his handprints of what he has done to bring you out of tough situations thus far? And then also in chapter 1, God has some pretty strong encouragement for Joshua. He says in chapter 6, be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. In verse 7, he continues, be strong and very courageous. And then he finishes in verse 9, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Pretty solid stuff, if you ask me. And the best part about God's promise to Israel, aside from telling them, hey, like, be strong and courageous, he also tells them, get involved, participate, be active. He says in verse 3, I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. If Israel doesn't move, if they don't set their foot on that ground, they're not going to get that promise. So take heart, take encouragement in the fact that God's got us, right? If you're worried about our future, know where you've come from. Be strong and courageous. Trust that the God that has been in the past is also going to be in our future. And then the third, don't be afraid to act in his plan. Don't be afraid to participate, right? When Joshua is sending spies, he is actively participating. When he tells the priest, hey, carry that ark through the water, he's saying, we have to do our part and let God handle the rest. So be encouraged, read your Bible. See you next time.